Hi, and welcome to my talk on hydronic radiant floor heating. This is the topic I wrote my alternative construction paper on. And while radiant floor heating is not an alternative way of constructing a home, it is an alternative way of heating a home. In this talk, I'm going to talk about the description, the history, the features, the design and installation, and the economics of hydronic radiant floor heating. So what is it? In a simple terms, it's water is heated up and it is pumped through PEX piping, which is beneath the finished floor of a home, and then recirculated back to the boiler where it was first heated. The history of it dates back to at least the Romans, possibly further back to ancient China. In this photo here, you can see this guy loading wood into a furnace, and the hot air is um, coming up here and heating the rooms. In this photo, you have a home by Frank Lloyd Wright, the famous architect, and he incorporated hydronic radiant floor heating into some of his homes. And in the U.S., we begin to see more popularity with this with the invention of cross-linked polyethylene known as PEX piping, which is piping that's used in the plumbing industry. Really flexible, easy to use stuff. Just and also doesn't the issue that Frank Lloyd Wright had in some of his homes and the homes that used hydronic heating before PEX was they were using copper piping, which eventually gets corroded and worn through, and then you have some bigger issues. There's two types of radiant floor heating. There's electric radiant floor and there's hydronic. I wrote my paper on hydronic because I kind of think it's a little better, but electric floor heating has its place. It's wire, um, some sort of maybe copper wire, some sort of resistive wire is woven through a mat like you see here, and it's connected to a power source and connected to a thermostat. Um, and the thing about electric heating is that it is not nearly as energy efficient as the hydronic, as the water, using water to heat your house. And so if you used all electric radiant heating, you would have a very high electric bill. But you can use it for something like bathrooms, where you step out of the shower on a cold day and you step on the nice warm tiles. Um, Both electric and hydronic heat are laying beneath the finished floor, and excuse me, it can either be on top of the subfloor or beneath the subfloor. Um, so hydronic heating using the PEX piping is the piping can be laid in the slab of a house if you're doing a slab foundation. It can be strapped between the floor joists beneath the subfloor, and it can also be placed on top of the subfloor like you see here and beneath the finished floor. And in this photo, you'll see it's a styrofoam pad that's put down, and the piping is woven through all these raised circles, and it creates a really nice pattern, and it's a really easy way to lay out the piping for your room. The really cool thing about hydronic radiant floor heating is that it can be used to heat up an entire home. And so we're going to talk about how it heats the home and the benefits of heating a home through this. So it heats through thermal radiation, and thermal radiation is different than, say, um, hot air from a forced air system. Thermal radiation it's where the heat is rising up from the floor, and as it rises, it heats the entire room uniformly. Unlike a forced air system, which is the air comes out at a certain temperature and it immediately is rises up to the top of the room and it cools and it comes back down and there's cold spots in the room and sometimes your feet are chilly but your head is warm, or sometimes the system shuts off because it senses it's at the set temperature when really most of the room is cooler, because of where the sensor is at. But in hydronic heating, um, it's a super uniform heat and it's heating up each object in the room at the same rate and the same temperature. And those objects then radiate the heat off of themselves. And so it ends up being a much more comfortable way of heating your home. It feels better. It's radiant heat is the type of heat you feel when you step out from, say, a shady tree out into the sunshine, and it's that immediate warmth you feel, which it feels a lot different than, say, dry, hot air being blown in your face. Um, and what's cool about hydronic heating is that you can set the temperature for the room lower, yet it feels warmer. So you could set the temperature to, say, 65, but it feels like 68 or 69 or something. And that's just through the physical properties of thermal radiation. Some of the benefits of hydronic radiant floor heating are that it is very efficient. It's a closed loop system. It's pretty insulated because the PEX piping is beneath the finished floor, if it's maybe in a slab or it's above the subfloor. So you're not getting as much heat loss as, say, a forced air system, which you can have um, holes in the ducting where hot air is escaping and cold air is coming in. Um, so you can actually save some money on electricity bills using hydronic radiant floor heating, even though you're maybe leaving the system on you leave it on all night because it takes so long for the water to heat up that you want to have the warm house in the morning. But it's so efficient that you can leave it on and you're not losing a ton of money on it, or you're not losing any money on it really. Um, the other really nice benefit is that it's quiet. You don't even notice that it's there. Your house is just warm. You don't hear it. You don't feel hot air being blown on you. Um, you just notice that you have a nice, comfortable, warm room. And that being said, your indoor air quality is better because, say, in a forced air system, you have to clean your ducts in the air ducts because dust builds up and crud and other things. And if you're not cleaning that out, it's being blown around your house all the time. Or if you have pets, say you have this dog hair is being blown around everywhere, or during springtime, as pollen's in the air, you're maybe getting some pollen being blown through there. Hydronic radiant floor heating, it's all, well, again, it's under the floor and it's in this piping, so you're not having to clean anything or suffering the consequences of not cleaning. And another thing is it's fairly low maintenance. Once it's all installed, you may be doing some maintenance on the boiler, but it's not as maintenance heavy as a forced air system or something. So you're not having this guy come over your house all the time and work on your stuff. Um, there are cons with it, and the biggest con is the upfront cost. And that's probably the biggest turnoff for a home builder because when you're building a home, you're obviously wanting to save money where you can. And in Humboldt County, you're probably looking at roughly $15,000 or so for a hydronic um, heating system versus, say, a forced air system, which is or a heat pump system, maybe around 5,000 or something. So the upfront cost will really turn some people off. But the system's going to last for your lifetime, and it's so comfortable that maybe at the end of the day, your electricity bills that you're saving money on, it's not necessarily going to pay for itself, but it will in your comfort level of the house. The other con is that this system is really only best for a new home build because to try to retrofit a house that you're remodeling with this, you have to tear up the entire floor, which is a lot of work, and it doesn't the cost benefit then would probably be way too much to even as comfortable as it is, it probably wouldn't be worthwhile. You could with say the electric mats that we talked about earlier, say you're redoing your bathroom, that may end up being somewhat cost effective. But for doing a whole home, you're really limited in the new build home. And you're also limited in the types of finished floor material that you use. You don't want to use carpet because the carpet will insulate the heat out of the room. It'll trap it beneath itself, and you're gonna have to turn the heat way up to feel anything. Um, you can also run into some issues with certain wood floors because of the heat source being directly below it. They do make sort of special vinyl planking, wood looking planks or flooring that it conducts the heat really well, and it's made for this system. But if you're dead set on wood floors, you just have to be very careful if you're going to use it with wood. Tiles work great, and I love the look of a tiled home. And usually you don't want to put tiles in your home because they're cold on your feet, but if the floor is warm, you're not going to notice that obviously, and it's going to feel nice. Um, you also could potentially raise the height of the floor, and so if you're not taking that into account when building a home, you could run into some issues. But in that photo I showed earlier of that styrofoam pad, it raises the floor by about, I think it's about half an inch to 3/4 of an inch. And so if you're already dealing with low ceilings, that might not work for you. Um, or if you were detailing out a cabinet or something, if you didn't take it into account that your floor height's going to be a little higher, you could run into some issues. But in conclusion, I think radiant floor heating is a great alternative way of heating a home, especially a new build. It efficiently provides a comfortable uniform heat throughout the whole home that you'll be very happy is in there. And it would be really cool to see CR put it in one of their future homes. It it doesn't really get used that much around here, and there's some folks. I talked to one contractor who swore it off, but then I talked to Maples Plumbing, and they do it, and he was all about it. And I think that um, there's some pushback for some reason against it, but I think it could be a cool thing to incorporate.